It's not just an unstable agreement, it's that no agreement can be reached at all.
United States President Donald Trump and his special representatives, Stephen Witkoff and Jared Kushner, are ready to come to Ukraine to demonstrate the stability of peace if Kyiv agrees to the peace deal currently being proposed by the White House. Such a statement was made yesterday by the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, who will meet tomorrow, December 28, in Florida, with the same American President, Donald Trump, to discuss the latest aspects of the peace plan. And this statement continues, but it was not made without reason. After all, Zelensky stated that he plans to put Donald Trump's entire peace plan, which expects painful territorial concessions from Ukraine, to a nationwide referendum. But to hold the referendum, Ukraine demands a complete ceasefire for at least 60 days, that is, even before the peace agreement is signed. Volodymyr Zelensky also said the United States is offering Ukraine strong, serious security guarantees. All this applies for 15 years for Ukraine, after which Russia could attack again, and the United States would no longer be obligated to defend us. Nevertheless, talks between Trump and Zelensky are already scheduled for Sunday. The Russians are trying to disrupt them, but they're still ahead. Today, December 27, the Europeans will also join a separate phone call between Trump and Zelensky to discuss the final details of the peace plan. At the same time, the Russians are already shouting that they won't accept the peace plans, hinting that Trump has no reason to meet with Zelensky then. Well, Trump is shouting that Zelensky has nothing until he personally talks to Vladimir Putin and approves it. In general, there's definitely something to discuss here, so let's get to it now. My name is Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and write any detailed comment under this episode. This really helps a lot with promoting the video on YouTube, and I will be very grateful to you for that. Subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link is in this video's description. There we publish breaking news as soon as it comes in. So, as everyone already knows, tomorrow, December 28, Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky will meet at the residence of the United States President, Mar-a-Lago in Florida. And on the eve of this trip, the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, gave an interview to Axios, in which he stated that he hopes to agree on the framework conditions for ending the war with President Trump at the meeting on Sunday. But what is the most important thing? Zelensky also stated that he is ready to put this peace plan to a referendum if Russia agrees to a ceasefire for at least 60 days. And here a whole series of unpleasant details emerges. First of all, Ryabkov, the deputy head of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, immediately rejected all agreements between Ukraine and the United States regarding the peace plan. Ryabkov stated that Russia is not going to make any compromises. And all these discussions, the last 2 weeks of the peace plan, are basically down the drain.
We saw that yesterday. Links to a plan consisting of 20 points appeared in Ukrainian public forums. We know that this plan is radically different, if you can even call it a plan, from the 27 points we've been working on in recent weeks, starting from the beginning of December. Contacts with the American side haven't produced an agreement. In fact, none can be reached.
In short, Ryabkov said the root causes of the crisis, namely Russia's war against Ukraine, must be addressed. Second, the goals of the special military operation will be achieved. Third, we cannot go beyond Anchorage. Well, Russians are still saying that there are some secret agreements between Trump and Putin that were made in Alaska, but in reality, Russians still haven't said what they are. Actually, no one understands what boundaries of Anchorage the Russians keep talking about all the time. And fourth, Ryabkov says that we can't, or rather, that it's impossible to defeat a nuclear power, hinting that they will go all the way, fight, kill, and so on. But this isn't just rejecting the peace plan. You know, this isn't even just a spit, it's something even ruder right in Donald Trump's face. Stephen Witkoff probably once again misunderstood the signals from the Kremlin. Why did Ryabkov give such a loud and bold refusal right now? And why this propaganda interview? Ryabkov, did it just show up? It's not a coincidence, because tomorrow there's a meeting between Zelensky and Trump in Mar-a-Lago where the final details of the peace plan were supposed to be agreed upon. In this way, the Kremlin kills the very purpose of the meeting and tries at best to disrupt it, or at the very least to make sure it leads to no result. Well, What is there to discuss at the meeting if the subject of discussion has already been rejected by the Russians? Just to clarify, the October 16 conversation between Putin and Trump about the planned Budapest summit, which never happened, already ended at once. That very one. The subject of the upcoming visit of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to the White House, where the supply of Tomahawk missiles was supposed to be discussed. Remember, Trump used to go around saying, listen, I'm basically ready to actually deliver Tomahawks to Ukraine. Then the Russians quickly started to change their tune. Putin called Trump, and that was it. The subject of the conversation was completely destroyed. So basically, right now the Russians are trying to pull exactly the same trick as they did in October. In a previous episode, I said not to have any doubts. As soon as they heard in the Kremlin that Zelensky was flying to Trump, they started blowing up all the phones in the White House, trying to reach Trump and disrupt these agreements. And here, secondly, as expected and predictable, Vladimir Putin started blowing up Donald Trump's phone, trying to talk to the American president before Zelensky and disrupt the negotiations. If they can't disrupt it, as I said, they'll just try to destroy the conversation subject. And Trump has already stated that Zelensky supposedly has nothing until he approves it, but first he needs to talk to Vladimir Putin. In short, it's all going in circles, that's it. Although Zelensky emphasized in an interview with Axios that significant progress has been made, Donald Trump's plan still requires Ukraine to make painful territorial concessions in the east. Zelensky still hopes to improve these terms and stated that he would need to get the approval of the Ukrainian people if he can't take a firm stance on the territories. And now the White House is hinting that the American side sees Volodymyr Zelensky's willingness to hold a referendum and even supposedly refuse territorial concessions as an important step forward. However, as Zelensky himself emphasized, holding such a plebiscite would entail serious political, logistical, and security-related difficulties. Therefore, Zelensky quite reasonably believes that a 60-day ceasefire along the entire front line is the minimum period needed to organize and conduct such a vote. A high-ranking American official told Axios that the Russians understand the need for a ceasefire if Zelensky initiates such a referendum on the territories, but the Russians say that everything can be organized much faster. We literally need 3 days and that's it, and then we'll start bombing again. Zelensky also stated that he still doesn't know whether Russia is even ready to agree to this Trump peace plan, quote, I have some intelligence data, but right now I want to believe only the words of the leaders. Well, for now we have a statement from Witkoff, who is shouting like a classic unwashed Russian, shouting with his dirty mouth. The special military operations goals will be met, and a nuclear power cannot be defeated, among other points. What I said a little earlier. Nevertheless, Volodymyr Zelensky stated that most aspects of the bilateral United States-Ukrainian agreements have already been agreed upon and codified in 5 documents, although a 6th may be added. It's not yet known what kind. On the crucial issue of security guarantees, Zelensky said, and I quote, I think we are already ready with these documents, although there are some technical points that still need to be discussed. And this is where real problems have emerged, which Zelensky refers to as technical points. One of the questions is the duration of the security guarantees agreement. The United States of America proposed a 15-year pact which can later be extended or, as you understand, may not be extended. Zelensky assures that this is not enough, and he intends to convince Donald Trump that in 15 years the Russians will definitely attack Ukraine again. And then it turns out that all these efforts by Trump to make peace lead to nothing. But still, Zelensky stated that both the United States and Ukraine will present security guarantees for ratification by their legislative bodies, that is, Congress and the Verkhovna Rada. Still, as you can see, the Americans say they can offer strong security guarantees, but only for 15 years. But still, Zelensky stated that he would still like to negotiate with Trump for a more favorable position regarding territory. But if the plan requires a very difficult decision on this issue, then Zelensky believes that the best way would be to put Trump's entire 20-point peace plan to a Ukrainian referendum. Not only the territory issue, but the whole peace plan. Zelensky compared such a vote to the Brexit referendum in the United Kingdom, when people actively campaign on both sides of a very complex issue. but only in a much shorter time frame and in a country engulfed in war. But will it be safe to vote in Ukraine? Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that Stephen Witkoff and Jared Kushner, special representatives of Donald Trump, are finally ready to visit Ukraine to present the advantages of the deal and prove that security guarantees from the United States are effective. And if they take the Russians at their word that they won't open fire, then this will definitely work going forward. Zelensky emphasized that Donald Trump himself, not just his envoys, but Donald Trump personally, should definitely visit Ukraine to demonstrate that his peace plan really works. Like, if Trump himself trusts the Russians, then let him come to Ukraine and walk our streets, see what the Russians have done. Like, if Trump wants a referendum in Ukraine so much, wants Ukraine to just hand over its territories to the unwashed Russians, and if he wants Ukrainians to vote on this issue in a referendum, then let Trump at least come to Ukraine on the day of the vote, as a guarantor that the Russians will keep their word and won't attack. Zelensky stated directly that if this vote takes place against the backdrop of ongoing Russian attacks, it will end badly, despite all the talk about security guarantees and economic benefits. Missiles will be seen. Here's a quote. If people don't come to the elections and the referendum because of security concerns, the result may seem illegitimate. It's better not to hold a referendum at all than to hold it when people don't have the opportunity to come and vote. Well, it's known that today, on Saturday, December 27th, a phone conference is expected between Zelensky, Trump, and a group of European leaders to update everyone on the current progress of the negotiations. Zelensky expressed hope that he and Trump will also be able to establish contact with the Europeans. During their meeting on Sunday, Zelensky stated that the goal of the Sunday meeting with Trump is to use all the progress achieved by their teams to develop a plan to end the war, including a timeline. Quote, I think that now we have reached a new level, and that's why we need to negotiate with the presidents. We want to finish this as soon as possible, so I'm counting on this meeting. As you understand, in the coming hours, we will see so many contradictory statements that it could just make your head spin. That's why I urge you to be very careful with the news today and still try to filter it. And, don't panic when you hear some very loud statements, because the events of the past year have shown that the negotiation process, can swing like a pendulum, going to completely opposite sides without settling on any position. So I'll leave it at that. Be sure to share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. Friends, if you found this episode useful and interesting, you can support the work of this YouTube channel with your donation or paid sponsorship subscription through the links and details provided. In the description of this video, it says support the channel Alexei Pechi. Choose any format that is convenient for you. I will be grateful for any of your support. That's all. Take care of yourselves, everyone. Goodbye, subtitles.